Sean, right here from musculardevelopment.com. We're in front of the world-famous Gold's Gym in Venice Beach on the famous park bench here. I'm joined by IFBB professional, national champion, Sergio Oliva Jr. Sergio, you're a long ways from Chicago, which is where it all started from you. We're going to get Sergio's life and times, where it started, where it's been, where it's going, and also where it's at here at Muscular Development. This is an exclusive interview going deep into the history and the archives of Sergio Oliva Jr. and its origins, which started with the myth Sergio Oliva Sr., who won the Mr. Olympia. For all you young jacks out there that don't know, he was the 1967, 68, and 69 Mr. Olympia champion. No longer with us, but he left this legacy in Sergio Oliva Jr. We're going to start with you. You came out here to Santa Monica, Gold's Gym, namely, after you won the national championships. But before that, tell us about how that started for you, because it wasn't like you had your dad in the gym training. The stories that you probably told a million times. Your dad didn't take you under his wing and try to create something. How did you even get involved with weight training without your dad's influence of taking you to the gym?
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually ran track, and I was about like 140 pounds whopping. And I was running track. I was like second in the state, and I was winning. It just wasn't, I don't know, I feel like I didn't love it anymore as I got older, and I just definitely didn't want to do that in college. I had scholarships, full rides, and it's weird, I like accidentally kind of just started working out a little bit on my own, and my body, I mean, it transformed really fast, and I kind of, stupidly enough, thought that that's how it was going to continue to grow. You know, I thought I'd gain like 30 pounds in like 2.5 months, and I was like, shit, I'm gonna be Mr. Olympia in like 3 years, you know. I don't know, I caught the bug, and then I learned real quick that it doesn't continue to go like that. So I tried to join some gyms in Chicago, and my dad just he did not want me to be putting, I don't know if it's so much he didn't want me to be lifting, just more that he didn't want me to be putting more into lifting than in school. And that's just, school wasn't my thing. And he started calling gyms, not letting me join gyms. So I had enough of it, and I just picked up one day and I moved to Florida. And that's where I started my bodybuilding career, was in Destin, Florida. It's on like the panhandle of the Gulf of Mexico. And I started as a middleweight, 176 pounds. I won some shows out there, some local shows. And then again, you know, once I realized I was kind of like the best in that area, I wasn't growing anymore, I realized I had to get out of there. I went back to Chicago for a little bit, and that's where I continued to train until I got my pro card.
So let me put some perspective on this, because your dad was clearly retired by the time you decided to even touch a weight. When did you realize who your dad was? At what age did you realize who he was in this industry?
Yeah, it's crazy, because I really not until recently, until I had to start putting on serious size, but also keeping my waist small, is when you realize how fucking hard it really is, and really how amazing of a physique that he really had. Me and him had our differences, but I've only respected him more that I've got into it, and what he was able to achieve, and God knows what he'd look like with today's availabilities. I can't even imagine. So it really wasn't until recently that I really realized how much of a myth and how much that nickname really is a perfect name for him. Because if you think about the measurements of his body and what he looked like, it's almost mythical.
It is definitely mythical. And by the way, it was 1965, Sergio, that I was born. And Larry Scott won the very first Mr. Olympia. 2 short years later, your dad would go in and take that title. Larry Scott's on record as saying the reason he retired at that time in 1966 after winning was he saw the writing on the wall with your dad coming along into bodybuilding. Without your dad's help in pursuing this sport at your age now, can you maybe understand why or what reservations that your dad may not want you to follow in his footsteps? Have you come to like settle in with maybe him not being there? Or are you still a little bit salty that he wasn't there for you as a bodybuilder coming in the game?
No, if anything, the more I get into it, the more it bothers me, because I realized how hard it really is and how many things I could have just learned right away from the beginning without the trial and error and guinea pigging on myself and trying to figure this out, because it took me almost 11 years to get my pro card. And then I have to sit around and I watch Lee Labrada and his son Hunter, and they do things together and then gym together, posing, and and right away from the day that he started lifting weight and a couple other children of bodybuilders, they know exactly what to do and what not to do, while I had to kind of test it out on myself. So no, if anything, it only makes me more irritated, because just like I can't imagine what he would look like with today's availabilities, I can't even imagine what I would look like if I had any help from him.
So just to give my perspective on it, like my dad, I'm the son of a janitor. My dad never went in the gym with me, not once. He couldn't show me how to bench press, couldn't tell me what to eat, couldn't help me with my posing. He didn't have the pedigree that your dad had. And so I had to figure it out, which made my career a little bit more self-gratifying for me because I did it on my own. Do you feel a little bit more accomplished that in spite of all those gifts that your dad could have given you, you're here and in 1 week you're going to be standing on stage making your pro debut? You won your NPC national championships without your dad's fingerprints on it? You're self-made?
Yeah, actually, for sure. I could totally agree with that. And if the story plays out in the end where it is a happy ending, then absolutely, because no one, look, being the first child of a professional bodybuilder to get the pro card, you're going to hear a lot of, oh, you got this because of your dad and that, you know what? But no one's saying that about me, because there's for sure no way you could possibly say that, because I'm sitting here with no help, no sponsors. I have no free ride. So I do like that, yeah, no one can put my success on anyone's shoulders but my own. Touching on what you just said, I'm a huge historian of the sport, and I think it's really cool that him holding me up in New York for that 84 for that Olympia, and now my first pro show is in New York, is kind of surreal. And even if I wasn't me and I was just a spectator on the outside looking in, I think the story's really cool. It's almost Lion King-esque, lifting your child up, and this is going to be the next king of the jungle. And man, if it plays out, I think it's such a cool ass story, no matter what. And it's good for the sport too, because the sport of bodybuilding, the first thing people that aren't in the sport want to say is that it's unhealthy and it's not good. But I'm living proof that this is a healthy sport. I literally am spawned and born from the fitness industry. My parents met in the gym, and I'm literally walking around because of bodybuilding. They both competed. My mom was a bodybuilder too. So I think it's really cool, the whole story of it. But for sure, at the end of it, I know, and all the people in my life that are close to me know, that it's only been me and the people that have helped me out, not him.
Yeah, and I think we've all got that. We know that your dad signed off on bodybuilding long before you were even a teenager. So 1984 was when I graduated high school. Lee Haney was winning his very first Mr. Olympia. I remember like it was yesterday when you were passed up on the stage and your dad held you. It was kind of like a scene at a Kunta Kinte, and like he was done. Like I think he did. I think he came back one more time, and then ironically, your mom wound up in my gym in Brea, California, as a teenager. They had a domestic situation, and I wanted to ask you about that. So, how was the relationship with your mom and dad and you coming up after his competition years? Was he present, or was he? Where was he in the economy of your upbringing?
See, a lot of people don't know too that my dad was a cop for 30 years. So I lived with him till I was 17. But yeah, I mean, we didn't like hang out. We weren't throwing the ball around. But I feel like I'm a good person, and I don't really do bad things to people. And if that's something that I got from him, which I had to have, if that's when it's in your upbringing, right? Is when you learn morals and stuff. So that's some way or another. I guess he did have an effect on me, because my sister, on the opposite, has never worked a job in her life. She's been spoiled by my dad, and I don't think she still to this day knows what reality is. But and that's what I tell people is I'm not holding any grudges towards my dad anymore, because if anything, I'm just looking at the good that came out of it, because who knows, what if I was like my sister and I never had to work a job and my dad wasn't hard on me and he did support me and actually did go to my sports games. Maybe I would be a spoiled little brat and I wouldn't have that hunger to want to be a champion, maybe in a roundabout way, if it was on purpose or not. Maybe that's what he instilled in me.
Well, I think bodybuilding for a number of us is something that shapes us into the human beings that we become in spite of our parents and sometimes because of our parents. Clearly, you're here, self-made. I mean, you're a product of great genetics, but as everyone knows, the genetics will only get you so far. That drive, that will, that hunger has got to come from within. Maybe some of that came from your mom. I wanted to touch on that because she said she competed as a bodybuilder as well. What did she think about you picking up where her husband had left off into an industry that was far advanced from when your dad competed? Things had changed, and by the time you came along and your dad was segueing the way out, now you're getting involved. How supportive of this was your mom?
I mean, you know what, to an aspect, she's still a mom, and this is a very scary sport, and someone who did it is only going to be the one to know how really hard it is. So of course, that's not probably what she wanted for me more than anything else. But what she wasn't going to do is she wasn't going to let me do it on my own. And that was the difference between my dad and my mom, is that they both didn't want me to compete, but at least if I'm going to do it, then they at least are going to be in my corner doing it. And that's what she's been. And every bodybuilder has these times in their life and in their career. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of them really early in my career, where you start to doubt yourself and you start to, not quit, but you start to rethink, man, am I doing the right thing? And there's been a lot of times where it was actually my mom that kept me motivated and kept me going. So really, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. I've spent more time in the gym with her than I have anyone in my family. So she showed me what she could when I was younger, and she's always been in my corner, no matter what state, no matter where my competitions are. She always flies, and she's always there. She's never missed it. So yeah, I mean, it's really her who's really kept me going.
Yeah, I think it's something that's inescapable, the shadow of the myth. It's almost like being a Kennedy. It's royalty. In the world of bodybuilding, it's royalty. And I got to imagine, I'm going to tell you a story. There's a Hall of Fame bodybuilder that was 4-time Mr. Olympia runner-up. And he didn't have the luxury of a mom and a dad in his late teens. They both passed away before he ever got the opportunity. That's the Maryland Muscle Machine, Kevin Levrone. He had no parents to guide him or to console him or even to encourage him, and yet he succeeded in spite of him. By the time we retired, he was the winningest pro bodybuilder of all time before Ronnie Coleman eclipsed that. So maybe the idea that your dad wasn't there to give you those advices is why you're sitting here today, poised for a potential victory in New York. You would be the only father-son Olympian, if you can qualify to go to the Olympia, that I know of, unless somebody can correct me. But your dad was a 3-time Olympia winner. You qualify and win the New York show and wind up in the Mr. Olympia. I mean, that is a huge footprint that you're making for yourself. So at some point, do you let the animosity about your dad not being there go and just own it for your own hard work that you've put in?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was saying, is that in a roundabout way, and as long as everything it's a fairy tale ending at the end, I'm glad that things worked out the way they did, and then that way it's a great story too, because then I know I for sure earned it. And like I said, I'm a huge historian in the sport, and that's why I'm not doing a smaller show here in California. I'm starting right away with, to me, I think the New York's probably like the third hardest show that you could do as a pro, under the Arnold and the Olympia. So me being able to edge my name into stone into those, with all those past champions and Bev and Steve and just what they've done for the sport, I think that alone is a really cool thing in the sport. But getting on an Olympia stage, that's just like a whole nother level. It's so crazy. Like, the best way I can describe it is like I just got drafted from playing college football, and now someone's asking me about the Super Bowl. I just want to get hit by a professional player first and play my first game before I even think about any kind of Super Bowls or anything like that. But is that the goal? Absolutely. I mean, why Michael Jordan's son wouldn't play basketball and not win an NBA championship? So I think it'll be a really cool story if it works out, but time will tell.
Well, obviously it's in the hands of the judges, but your physique is worthy of where you stand now. You won the national championships, which is not something that happens on accident. You've seemingly paid your dues because you've had to lift the weights, you've had to eat the calories, and now you're living the life of a professional bodybuilder. Let's get to the reality of that. It doesn't get any easier because now you see the guys you have to compete against. As an amateur, you might not have known them all, but as a pro, you're going to wind up in New York up against Johnny Jackson, who just won over in Brazil, a guy that's 40 plus. He won the USA Championships. You're going to wind up going up against the Dominican Dominator, Victor Martinez, John De La Rosa, Akim Williams. I mean, these are guys that were doing it when you were still an amateur. Is there any extra pressure, or are you just going to be turning this inside and trying to be the best Sergio that you can be?
I think both. Of course, I have expectations for myself and pressure for myself to do well. But to tell you the truth, I feel like I'm behind where I should be. I beat Juan Morel at Junior Nationals before, and I get a little rematch against De La Rosa. That's where I should be, but I've had a lot of setbacks in life, and I might not have had as much help as they have, and I've struggled. So I've actually had to sit back and watch these guys' career take off, and they've done amazing. So this, to me, is kind of my test for myself to see, am I really up there with them, and I just hadn't been on stage, or am I not? Am I not in that league? But when you're talking about people like Johnny and Victor, like I said, I love the sport, and be able to stand next to these guys. I think the Olympia that Victor lost, where he got second, is one of the biggest controversies ever. I think that's so surreal to be able to stand next to them and even just feel like, even just this past weekend when I was in Pittsburgh guest posing, for them to treat me and accept me as a fellow pro is already a gift in itself. But getting on stage, and I don't have to tell you, it's doing competitions like your report card, and for that, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you spent your whole year getting ready for, you find out right away where you stand. There is no I don't believe people get screwed in bodybuilding. I feel like someone might have an opinion where they thought someone was one way or another, but really, if you are in contention, you'll be up there in that first call out, and you should be able to battle with these guys. But thinking about battling with guys that could have won the Olympia or have already won several shows, it's scary for sure.
Well, let's go back. 1991, just right around the corner. Just a stone's throw in Santa Monica, I talked to, and I was commentating for ESPN, Flex Wheeler had just lost to Mike Matarazzo. And after that show, he said if he doesn't win in 1992, he's going to get a job. He's like, he was on his last leg, headed into the 1992 Mr. USA. He felt he'd done everything that he can do, and he said, this is it, Sean. If I don't win this show, this is it. I'm done. And he had just gotten second to Mike Matarazzo. And we all know what happened in 1993. Flex Wheeler reeled off 4 of his first pro shows. He won the Ironman, the San Francisco, the Arnold Classic, and then he wound up in second place to Dorian Yates in the Mr. Olympia, surpassing me and a whole bunch of other guys, and it launched his career. He had to have his back against the wall, penniless, in order to go in and be the absolute best. Tell me where you're at today.
It's interesting that you say that, because that's the exact same situation I'm in. I wouldn't say that if I don't win the show, I'm mentally done, but financially, yeah, I am done. I've only bought a one-way ticket to New York. I'd literally have budgeted enough to make it there. Like I said, no one can tell me that they've given me anything because of my dad, because I've put all my eggs into this one basket for this one show. And now that you're telling me stories like that, and I talked to Phil last week, and he kind of told me a similar story, I thought I was the only one ever that is literally going for broke. And if I don't place, first or second, yeah, I'm literally homeless. I don't have my rent paid for June. I don't have a plane ticket back. I got into a car accident. Someone totaled my car. I don't even have a car. I've been walking to the gym, so it's scary, but I feel like, man, how much more pressure could I possibly have? I'm about to pop a diamond out of my ass with all this pressure, but yeah, man, this is it. This is the make or break for me, because if I don't place well, I really have not thought about anything past May 20th. May 21st on, I have no clue of what I'm going to do.
And you're not the first. I mean, a lot of bodybuilders put themselves in that position where they give all they have. It's sink or swim. It's that type of a sport. I'm not sure if I'd call it pressure, because now when the interview's done, when the workout's over, you go back home and you think of your next meal, you think of your next workout, you work on your next posing. Everything is focused towards the goal at hand, and you've got a little bit more than a week and a half to get ready for this back east. What a huge feather in your cap it would be to take these guys out. But at the same time, isn't that what you expect? Don't you expect victory in New York? And if that happens, you start from scratch all over again anyway. That's what happened at the Nationals. You were there, you won, and you had to start over. You took a year before you decided to pick a show, and you didn't pick just a random contest. This has history. You know it's got depth and talent, and you know that this can change your career. The guys that have won the New York Pro, from Robbie Robinson, Phil Hill, Mike Christian, Lee Haney, this is a show that launches careers. Kai Green, Phil Heath. I mean, you know the guys that have won the show. So this is one that you chose intentionally, and you put yourself in this position. So bodybuilder to bodybuilder, I'm trying to find out where's the pressure. I mean, this is what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good point. You're right. Because the kind of person I am, if I did a smaller show around here and I beat nobody, I would feel worse, because then there's still that what if. Am I really good? Is it just that nobody showed up? You know, the question, the mystery when you do a show is almost worse than losing. I would rather probably lose to somebody really well, and I'm going to get better. I'm going to get back in the gym, and I'm not going to quit in this. I'm just saying I'm just going to have to figure out some way financially that I'm going to have to save my ass again. But yeah, I would for sure rather go into a show, get hit by a real pro, than enter a show where there's not really any qualified pros doing it, and then I walk away thinking I'm good, which happens a lot on the amateur level, and guys will do a lot of smaller local shows, and you start to think I'm the biggest guy in the gym, I'm the best guy in my town, and then you step on a national stage and then you're in last call out and you're like, man, what's going on? And that's your reality check of knowing where you really stand or who you stand next to. Everyone wants to tell me about how good I look, or I'm going to be this in the future, and really you're only saying that because I'm standing next to people that aren't pros. That it doesn't count. It's who you stand next to and when you stand next to them. This past weekend's a perfect example. I'm a week out from a show, and people are telling me I look better than people that were at the show. That shows they know nothing about bodybuilding at all. These guys are in the off season eating 10,000 calories a day. Of course I better look like I'm in better condition than them. So with this show, I'm really excited, to tell you the truth. There's pressure because I need to think about my livelihood, and just also, I have a family and I have people that I need to take care of. But I'm excited myself to see where I'm at, because, man, if I could go into my pro debut and beat some guys that I look up to, man, that's like the best gift there is.